Now, San Francisco. Apparently San Francisco is now thinking about paying descendants of African Americans or living African Americans, I think up until the 1990s, up to $5 million as part of reparations. Now, there's talk about doing this on a hundreds of billions dollar level in California, and I know that it comes and goes often from the national conversation in places like the US and here in Australia. But we live in crazier times by the day. Is this actually going to happen?
If it weren't California, I would say no. But they're crazy. Crazy in California. So anything is possible. So this is by state mandate. The state is looking at statewide reparations to, I'll get to what it would take to qualify. And San Francisco is looking at its own program. And the state comes out with its recommendations in June, but this may be a preview that we're getting from San Francisco. Here is what they're proposing. You need to pay $5 million to every single Black resident who meets the following criteria, and they're very easy, okay? Each person would get $5 million plus supplement their income for 250 years to the tune of about $97,000 a year, almost $100,000 a year on top of their $5 million grant. They also say you would have to cancel their student loans, cancel housing loans, cancel all their credit card debt. You would have to give them first choice for any subsidized rental units, prioritize all Blacks for employment opportunities, contracts, training programs, you name it, grants to them for home maintenance and repair costs. I could go on. If they extend this to the state level, almost 30% of Californians were not born in the United States. So you're going to get a bunch of people who come in from nations that may have had nothing to do with slavery, having to pay a bunch of people who probably did not descend from slaves because California was a free state. They never had slaves. So what are they talking about?
Wow. Look, if they were paying reparations for the people that Kamala Harris helped put in jail for drug possession, that would be an interesting conversation. But I noticed stand by, Paul, because here are the criteria that you would have to meet in order to get this. It's not enough to be a Black person in California or San Francisco. You need to have identified as Black on public documents for at least 10 years. Who knew? Just identify. You can just say you have been for 10 years. Get in now while the getting's good, apparently. So that's one. Then you have to meet at least two of the following criteria. I'll just give you a couple. One is born in San Francisco between 1940 and 1995 and have proof of residency for 13 years. Well, that's easy. So basically, if you're a Black person of virtually any age and you have identified as Black for 10 years, that's one. Then the other one is, or migrated to San Francisco during that time. And here's the other one. There's a bunch. Personally be the direct descendant of someone who was incarcerated by the failed war on drugs. They are going to intentionally reward people who are convicted of drug dealing in this time frame, so long as they're Black. So Dad was a drug dealer. Dad's now passed away. Here's my $5 million plus $89,000 for the next, 90 years.
Yes.
Sadly, I think you're right. This crazy stuff happens in California that wasn't a damn slave state. Honest, wow.
Paul, there's so much to say. Like, let's talk. Like, how about women? Let's do women next, okay? Because Blacks got the vote, the right to vote before women did. Mm-hmm. They entered the workforce prior to women. What are we going to do next? Like, Black men have to pay reparations to women. What? Like, why? What do you mean? Should the women be paying reparations in California to the descendants of slaves just because they happen to have Black skin? I mean, this is actually totally absurd. What about the Irish and the Italians who were put through hell when they got here and treated like second? We could go down the line, but none of that is going to happen. I do think something could happen both in San Francisco and on a statewide level. They're estimating up to $50 billion in expenses in California for a state that's falling apart. Their roads are falling apart. They've got, forests that need tending. I could go down the list, but this is what they want to use their money for. Okay.
Well, if they want to come up with a tax for sanctimony at award shows, perhaps that could be the way that they pay for it. Lovely to talk to you.
We're going to have to find a way.
Yeah. Awesome to talk to you, Megyn. We'll see you next week.
You too, Paul. Thanks for having me.